because it's LG Stellantis, the battery plant, right? So LG is South Korean. There's still in active communication with over 40 of their suppliers. And there's already guaranteed another 1,000 jobs to announce that haven't been announced yet. And he said to me at the end, and it hit me like a hammer on a nail. He said, Rhys, we're going to run out of industrial land before we run out of announcements. And he's not kidding, man.
Damn.
This is a moment in time. Like, there was a 2-year window where you're going to get the battery plants or you're not. And Ontario and Quebec, with the help of the federal government, killed it. They did about as well as you could have imagined, right? So for Southwestern Ontario with us, thank you, Justin Trudeau, and thank you, Dougie Ford, because they aced it. They really did, right? And everybody should be proud of those guys. They have set up Southwestern Ontario for economic stability for the next 50 years.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. I'm Adam J.D. Martin, and today I'm joined by Rhys Trenhaile for our Windsor Fall Market Update. So, Rhys, what's going on in Windsor today?
Windsor is economically booming. Windsor has over 1,000 people moving here a month. And yet
that's a lot.
For comparatively to our population base, right? It works out to a higher influx per capita than even Toronto with its 100,000 people a year. Right, we're 12,000, but we're only a city of about 360,000. Right,
that's actually significant. Like anybody watching this right now has just had some thoughts go through their mind, because I know I did. Right.
So you're going to add about 14,000 people this year. Where are they living? Because Windsor's net vacancy rate is an effective rate of 0, and the real estate market has inexplicably slowed down. And I've heard from other guys and gals in other cities that it's slowed down there as well. But it makes it makes no sense. Like, there is such a demand building up. And I hate to use this as an analogy because it's awful, but one of my clients used it the other day, and he's a high up executive with one of the big internet companies. And he's a top Canadian executive in one of those. And he said it crudely but accurately, is that it feels like the whole market is holding back one hell of a diarrhea.
Awesome.
Right? And at some point you can't hold it back. And he's like, I hate to use it because it's so like disgusting, but it's so accurate. Like, it's like, it just can't continue. Like, there's less housing than people that need housing. Like, it just, I don't know.
So, Rhys, what have been, so obviously what you're saying right now is the market is acting counterintuitively to what that information suggests. So what data points are you seeing that would lead you to that conclusion? Like, is the days on market increasing right now? Are we finding a lack of, like a decrease in total volume in sales? What's going on in the market that leads you to say that?
Yeah, so bear in mind, as I say that, we're really talking as real estate investors, you have to avoid this. You can't worry about month-to-month numbers. You can't be hyper focused like that. You've got to look in terms. We're running a marathon, not a sprint, right? So you've got to really stand back and say, well, what's going to happen over the next year? What's going to happen over the next 3 years, right? And there is this whole 800-pound gorilla in the room that you don't have enough housing. And it's getting worse, not better, because you have so many people moving to the city because of the economic news, right? That's just been a massive economic explosion that's leading to a 10-year golden age down here, right? Conference Board of Canada said, oh, we're going to have a recession in Canada, except for Windsor. Windsor's still going to grow by 2%. right?
Right.
Like
So just for the viewers, because I know it's
yeah,
hard to keep track as you go, and I think that from my experience, a lot of the people that I run into that are thinking about buying in Windsor
yeah.
are naturally, if you're thinking about that, you're actually probably not from Windsor. So could you just real quick, like, what are 5 projects, 3 or 5 projects that are leading to some of that 1,000 people coming in to the actual city of Windsor? What's going on there?
Sure. So we've covered it sort of ad nauseum on previous videos, but to summarize, Windsor is building the largest battery plant in North America. And for point of reference, when it's completed in a few more months, it will be generating more gigawatt capacity than the entire United States ability to produce batteries combined. And that's including Tesla and that freaking half Canadian guy. I can't think of his name right now. Everybody worships him and he's an idiot. What's his name?
Elon Musk for that.
Elon Musk. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay. So what you just said was that there's going to be more battery capacity coming to Windsor, Ontario than all of the United States of America
Combined.
combined. That 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 okay. That's
And
absurd. We'll move
and
on. Yeah,
and we're getting one of 2 world-class battery research and development facilities, 650 engineers and PhDs.
yeah, and I think you and I would both agree that the future looks more battery powered than not.
So if you
Everything
think,
is becoming battery powered.
yeah, if you think if you guys think of it in terms of first industrial revolution, second, third, and now fourth, right? Windsor and Detroit was where in the world that the second industrial revolution started. The first mass production plant was in River Rouge, which literally from where I sit is less than 5 kilometers away. The second plant was in Windsor, in Ford City. And in fact, the Ford Motor Company of Canada was signed directly underneath my feet at the old Victoria Tavern. Yeah. So now you
That's
know where
awesome.
I'm recording from. So that was the second industrial revolution. We were the beginning of it, man. This was ground zero for the second industrial revolution throughout the world. It started here. The third industrial revolution, we're like most of the world. We rode the coattails of it, right? Computers, internet, blah, 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 blah. What's happening now is that the fourth industrial revolution, even though it's more globalized, there are major hubs. So if you can think of pillars popping up on different parts of the world, right? You'd have a pillar that would pop up in Shanghai. You'd have a pillar that would pop up in, London. You'd have one that pops up in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, right? One of those massive pillars is, again, Windsor, Detroit. Like, we have in our city more automation software companies than anywhere in North America. Number 2 is Detroit, right?
That's awesome.
This is where the automation of cars, this is where a ton of the code is getting written, right? And like everybody go, oh, I thought you guys were just a dirty little car town. It's like, no, like the economy has diversified down here to extreme levels. And
Yeah,
we are one of
and I think
sorry.
but that's just like very important again, and I know we've talked about it before on the channel, but for the person who's just finding the YouTube channel or just finding this video, I mean, that's important to understand, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not because there is a almost a stigma for some investors from outside of the city just because it's so, first of all, it's so far away, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them just haven't had a reason to go that far down the 401. There's
So
airports
true.
in Toronto, so why do you go to Windsor, or or why would you go to Detroit or whatever, right? And so there's not a lot of excuses unless you're going to maybe a show or something. And then unfortunately, you're downtown in an area that hasn't always been the most attractive when it comes to, like, there's some sketchy nightlife and stuff like that. But
Yep.
as we start talking about economic prosperity coming into an area, I think that's where we can start having a different discussion and saying, like, to avoid the previous analogy, there's a lot of built up demand here, and there really is not significant solutions for the supply. Like, unless, Rhys, something I don't, like, I'm pretty sure we haven't added that many units to the Windsor area in
No.
terms of adding supply. So your first question was, where are all of them going to live? And so I agree with you that, like, that's a challenge actually for me, kind of mentally, that, like, if your stats right now are not displaying the consequences of adding that many people to a market. And I'm pretty sure that what we'll see there is sort of that like bullwhip effect, where you do see people really changing those stats as they settle in, right? Because there's only going to be so much supply that can get eaten up, and then there's still another 1,000, and then another 1,000, and then another 1,000, and then another 1,000. And the more times you do that, right? Like unless regulatory environment changes, there just will not be supply, right?
Yeah.
So those numbers have to go up. I mean,
Yeah. When it comes to housing, forget about the micro, forget about the 1 or 2 months at a time, right? You got to focus on the long term. What's going to happen over the next year? What's going to happen over the next two? Like, what do you guys, all the major banks that have access to all the data, right? Forget about economists that are working for a labor union or economists that are working for the Fraser Institute. They have agendas, right? The chief economists choose two of the big five banks and listen to them. I listen to RBC and I listen to Benjamin Tallet's CIBC. That's where I get my national economic predictives for, and it's quite accurate. The reason it's quite accurate is they have access to all that data. They'll tell you that the interest rates are going to drop basically starting next year, right? What do you think happens to real estate at that point?
yeah, I mean, demand will even further increase, right? And as we've been discussing, like the demand is already very high. I think one of the issues that Windsor will face, and it depends where you're sitting. If you already own, this is a great issue. If you are in the market to buy more, this is an issue that will require solutions, which is that will just create more demand and the supply will not have changed,
Right.
or it will not have changed much, right? Because few people are building.
When that's it. Even down here, we're having some modest upticks in building, but it slowed right down again the last couple of months. But it'll go back up. What people need to understand, what investors need to understand, is there's two ways to make money right now in a situation like that, right? The one is understanding that, and this comes right from Canadian Urban Institute and other big sort of brainiac experts on this stuff. Nobody believes that we are going to miraculously catch up our building speed to match the demand for housing. It's not going to happen, right? So then how do you create stopgaps to make sure that we're kind of catching up or we're kind of keeping up? How can you augment new home builds? And the answer to that is additional dwelling units.
Yep.
We don't have a choice. You can complain all you want. You can be a politician all about NIMBY rights. It doesn't matter. It's not. You, as an investor, are going to get the red carpet rolled out for you increasingly to build additional dwelling units. And we've seen it over time already, right? Kathleen Wynne, the only thing I can think of that she did well was she created the additional. I hate to be political because I'm a centrist, but
No, she sucked. Everybody knows that. You're fine saying that.
Affiliation, guys, she wasn't good, but she did create the first additional dwelling unit laws. Dougie Ford comes in and he doubles it. He says, "Hey, you can have 2 ADUs per property," right? Then the federal government comes in and says, "Oh, the cities have got a whole bunch of regulations against building residential." Sean Fraser, the federal minister, correctly says that cities criminalize building. If you look at their regulations and their code, we are bad guys that they're defending it, and it's screwing up the whole system. So now the federal government is got the big carrot saying, "Hey, municipalities, show us how you're not going to be stupid anymore. Show us how you're going to use common sense. Show us how you're going to speed things up, and we'll write you a big, nice, fat check to build a lot more residential apartments." Bear in mind, they're not giving money for condos. They're not giving money for houses. They're giving money to build apartments near public transit. The reason they're tying it to public transit is they don't want apartment buildings out in the boondocks in suburbia. They want it in the inner cities. And the reason for that is a myriad of reasons, but you get your downtowns hopping, your economic output in your cities explodes. Your GDP really goes up. So I'm giving this backdrop to you guys to understand which way the water's flowing. right? If you're a surfer, you're not trying to surf against the waves, man. You're trying to catch that wave, right? Oh, that was a good analogy, Rhys. Write that one down. But you want to catch that wave. And that wave right now is guys build ADUs and get paid, right? Guys, we're going to build a bunch of apartment buildings, get paid. I can tell you right now, we're working heavily with the city of Windsor to make sure we're one of those cities like Medicine Hat in Alberta that has pre-approved ADU designs, pre-approved duplexes, pre-approved fourplexes, pre-approved sixplexes. Give us pre-approved designs. And if we want to build,
that would be incredible.
oh, it's already done in a whole bunch of cities in America, and it's already done in a handful of cities in Canada. It's coming. It's coming. Guys, if you've already got the house and you got the ADU in the basement, like a lot of us, right? This is what we love doing. Our real estate team is increasingly just buying houses and adding additional dwelling units. Stephanie Saunders has done 8 of them herself in the last 18 months. And all 8 of those, she tried to get her clients to buy. They all turned their nose up, and she bought them instead. And she has made an absolute minimum of, oh boy, can I say? Yeah, she doesn't care. She's made an absolute minimum of 50 grand per flip. Do the math. She's done 8 of them in 18 months. And you can do that with her, guys.
Yeah,
you can do that with her.
That's just amazing. Like, first of all, it's really great to have a service provider who understands that value proposition and has done it before. So that's a big shout out to your team. But second of all, the more that stuff comes into the market, the more specialized contracting companies will appear, right? They will come and fill the demand for that type of product. And again, if we have standardized units, man, that would be very interesting solution where, like, hey, you know, ABC contracting, we only do these 6 drawings, and we can come and pop that up in 2 months for you, and you've got an ADU in your yard now making you $1,200 a month or whatever that might look like.
Your cost plummets because it's cookie cutter, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you even think about giving that design to a prefab company.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's even better. Truck it in. Don't even build the damn thing. What an idea. Rhys, so that's actually a really awesome solution that will help Windsor. What do you actually think? Like, have you put much thought to like why the numbers aren't where they are right now? Like, is it literally just fear, uncertainty, doubt in the market with shifting economics, shifting rates? Like today they held the rate, right? And in this video, if you're going to watch this a couple days later, today is October 25th, they held the bank rates. Do you think it's people waiting for that? Like, is it literally a powder keg right now that's ready to pop? Or is there something else? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, a few of my teammates believe it's solely that once you start seeing stability and the interest rate, et cetera, and a lot of talk about the interest rates coming down, you're going to see people coming back in. Couple things about that. I think it's more complex than that. I think people are just feeling an angst overall with the cost of living.
Right.
And it's causing them to balk. And then when they balk, it's a positive feedback loop, but in a bad way.
It's a signal. Yeah.
Yeah. So other people are feeling that angst that aren't necessarily hurting. Like my parents. My parents are not hurting, right? But they feel that negative vibe. I was talking to my dad about it the other day. They feel the angst of other people. It affects you. It's like when ants communicate with each other, the antenna. And one's freaking out because you when you were 5 years old, you flicked it, and then it freaks out all the other ants, even though the other ants don't know why they're freaked out. It's kind of like that, right? I think there's just like a herd angst, right? And investors never get wealthy being a part of the herd.
No.
Right? If you believe in contrarian theory like me, I will till my dying day be fearful when everybody's fearless and be fearless when everybody's fearful. Right now, people are leaning towards fearful. That means there's deals for me, baby. Right? And you have to understand that as an investor. I know a lot of guys and gals that are watching this have not invested yet. Understand that you've got a lot of fear to plow through on your first investment, right? You got a lot of questions, you got a lot of unknowns, you got a lot of fears. Understand that to be wealthy, one of the 3 things that distinguishes the wealthy from everybody else is the wealthy's willingness to take small, calculated risks with their money, right? So when you hear people like Adam talk, you hear people like me talk, we're out there now. We're easily accessible resources now on YouTube. I didn't have this 28 years ago when I started, no, 26 years ago when I started investing, right? We were winging it, man. We didn't know. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We're learning. You guys have got all the resources now. So your risk factor is way lower than mine was when I started because you have that access to data, but you still have to accept that to become wealthy, you got to take a small calculated risk with your money, right?
Absolutely. And I actually have a different side of that coin to share. Like I started with all of these resources, and I guess like I'm the example of maybe someone who used them and used them appropriately, took the risk, right? Surround yourself with great people and people who have the courage to say run towards the panic. When other people are running away, you should maybe consider that as a signal that there's opportunity to be buying. So I think that's great, Rhys. And like you mentioned earlier too, if you look at this on a long enough time horizon, none of this matters, right? Like
the short-term stuff doesn't matter. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and so everything we've been talking about though is Windsor's going to be great.
Yeah.
So like the fact that people are running away or simply not taking any action right now is not necessarily a bad thing for the guy who's thinking in a 5-year time horizon or longer about the city itself. So I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, and understand this too, like guys, like you don't have to be an expert out the gate, right? You hire the experts. Like those of you that run around with different real estate agents on different deals because you think you're getting cheaper commissions, you're freaking nuts. I'm sorry. Like before I was a real estate agent, I didn't understand why anybody would do that when I was just an investor. Like you get the best possible lawyer in your corner, the best possible accountant in your corner, which you don't need straight away, by the way. Like wait till you get some wealth first. And the best possible real estate agent. That's how you get wealthy. Why the real estate agent is in there? Because 80% of the world's wealthy get wealthy through real estate investment, not crypto or the stock market or even owning a business, and it does really well. Like 80% of us are landlords. That's the world's wealthy. That's how they make their wealth. So with us, if you come down to Windsor and you go, oh my God, Rhys, I've never been to Windsor in my life, but well, it doesn't matter. You got us. And we love building your wealth. Because the wealthier you get, the more commissions we get. So we have a vested interest in you getting wealthy. And residential agents don't get that.
Yeah,
and sell your property and then they'll run off to get like a wolf going to the next carcass. They're gone. Yeah, we're more like financial advisors. We're like, okay, is this the right property? Okay, if you buy this property, how are we going to leverage it in the next 2 years so you can get that next property? Where's the value add? Like that's the game, man. And then because we're all investors ourselves, you don't have to, but you can use our power team. Like we have multiple renovators. We have for the ADUs, we have multiple lawyers that we really like. I can tell you we don't like 80% of lawyers, but 20% really like, we'll refer them. So we make sure you get taken care of. Right?
Yeah. I also want to point out too, because the internet's a scary place and YouTube is no exception. There's somebody watching this video right now that thinks, yeah, of course you would say that, Rhys. And yes, you did just say you're after my money because I'm going to buy there and you're going to get commissions. So Every realtor says the same thing about every city. But what I want to point out as the host of the show, now I'm invested in Rhys winning. I want him to win. But I'm going to tell you right now, he could say anything he wants as the sales guy to you right now, but the important thing that you cannot argue with and you cannot change are the facts of what's going on in Windsor. So that's the thing. Like every sale, Rhys is a handsome guy in a suit. I mean, who's not going to listen to the message that he just delivered? But what you got to pay attention to is like 1,000 people coming into Windsor is a lot. More people going to Windsor than Toronto is a big deal. More jobs, more infrastructure, more industry, and industries like batteries. Like literally just think about your house. How many batteries are in your house? How much battery operated equipment is there? How much have you heard about battery operated vehicles coming up in the future? Everything is going towards that. This is not a flash in the pan. These are real big investments in infrastructure that don't go away. And like you might think, well, they're going to have a bunch of construction, then those people are going to go. Maybe, But who's going to maintain these facilities? Who's going to work in them all the time? People will be flying in from around the world to be specialized in these different industries. Like, these aren't things that go away. So while it is true that every realtor is going to tell you their city's the best city, what I like to focus on is the actual facts, right? The data. And that's why we opened this video up, because I knew you were going to be watching. I knew you right there. I knew you were going to be the one leaving the comment being like, yeah, but he's just a slick dude in a suit selling me. And I get that. Like, I really do understand that perspective. But the facts about this city are what intrigue me so much. And it's just helpful that Rhys happens to know all of that as well and be able to present it to you in a very slick way, the way he does. And really all that is too, is experience, right? That's years, decades, right, Rhys? I don't want to assume, but that's almost decades in the market.
20 years as a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Greg's been on my team for 17 of those. Everybody else varies between 4 and 12 years, but almost all of them are 10 to 12 years. And a team stays together that long when they share a common vision, and a common mission, right? So our mission is very clear. It's basically what I just said to you, and yeah, am I Johnny Salesman? Yep. Am I blunt and sincere? Yep. Because I don't have time to waste on trying to shine feces for you, and then you don't buy something when you realize it's feces that's a waste of my time. Why would I waste my time? Why would I waste my teammates' time? Right? I got 2 kids I like being home with. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's sincere, and yeah, it might be smooth because it's been said many times, but yeah, it's you're right, Adam. It's on the backdrop of what Windsor is right now. Like, you guys have to understand, it's not just that one battery plant. Michigan's also building 2 major battery plants, right? Southeastern Michigan, next to us, Detroit area, but also St. Thomas, which is 70 minutes up the road from us. And Windsor remains the world center for tool, die, and mold making. And now you're building 4 of the biggest battery plants in the world, all within 70 minutes one way and 30 minutes the other way around Windsor. And you got to understand, guys, when you're manufacturing batteries, they're fragile. You can't ship them to Kentucky for the next part or the next phase in the manufacturing. It all has to be local. And Windsor's the hub of tool, die, and mold making. Where do you think all that's going, right? And I've said this in a previous, and we can get into the presentation next, so we're going to run out of time. But I've said this before. A good friend of mine runs the development commission for Windsor Essex, and I was meeting with him about another sort of economic matter. And I said at the end of the meeting, I said, "Hey, Stephen, as an aside, how did all those meetings go in South Korea?" Right? There's still an active communication with over 40 companies in South Korea, because it's LG Stellantis, the battery plant, right? So LG is South Korean. There's still an active communication with over 40 of their suppliers, right? And there's already guaranteed another 1,000 jobs to announce that haven't been announced yet, publicly. And he said to me at the end, and it hit me like a hammer on a nail. He said, "Rhys, we're going to run out of industrial land before we run out of announcements." And he's not kidding, man.
Damn.
Yeah. So I just talked with the mayor of Tecumseh yesterday, and again about another economic matter. And he was telling me how quickly they're scrambling to service and get new industrial land up and running. And I know the city of Windsor is doing the same thing. They're all scrambling to get more industrial land ready because they don't want to lose. This is a moment in time. Like, there was a 2-year window where you're going to get the battery plants or you're not. And Ontario and Quebec, with the help of the federal government, killed it. They did about as well as you could have imagined, right? So for Southwestern Ontario with us, thank you, Justin Trudeau, and thank you, Dougie Ford, because they aced it. They really did, right? And everybody should be proud of those guys. They have set up Southwestern Ontario for economic stability for the next 50 years, because that's how long these plants last. And if you don't get them, you're done. They go to Illinois, they go to Ohio, you'll never see them again. These things last 50 years minimum. So we got really, 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 really lucky, but in a prepared way. We were ready for this. I'm not going to get into all that because we have to get into the presentation, but
Yeah, we'll get it.
so well set up. It's insane. Yeah, it's a golden
Let's
age,
jump
guys.
right into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like my final comment on that, and we'll transition into the presentation, is just that the implications of those large infrastructure investments take time to manifest in the market. And so I think that the real message here is actually one of like great optimism, that the future of Windsor actually looks very good. And for those that are watching that are thinking about investing and not actively doing it yet, there's lots of time, like lots of time to get into the market. For those that are actively investing and want to increase your investment, this also seems like a great opportunity to catch some of these initial waves where you start seeing massive upticks as the demand meets this moment in time where there's not enough supply. And for those that have just been long-term investing forever, maybe you're in a city that has sort of tapped its potential. What an opportunity to go and relive your glory days of increasing your wealth. Like, I know when I started investing in London, it was a perfect time in history because so many jobs were coming, so much inflation was happening. All these market things had led to like these houses that I was purchasing for 120 grand to go way up, right? Massive appreciation. And it was kind of a timing thing, but also just something that could be relived and repeated if we understood what the signals were. And what we're looking at today and what this presentation has been about was signals. So there's lots of signals. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but what the hell do you do with 12,000 people coming into an area with no more houses? Like, it's not that hard, guys. That's basic microeconomics. So
it's the simplest economic
ever.
conclusion since I've been paying attention. Like,
Yeah,
it's supply and demand. There's nothing. Oh, what about inflation? What about this? What about supply and demand?
It just doesn't matter. So anyways, I just wanted to, leave that on a more of a conclusion for those at the different stages of investment, because I think it's important. I know when I was starting out, I had a lot of this fear that like, shit, I missed the boat, right? I actually missed it. I was too late. You're not too late.
No.
You are never too late. The moment you're late is when you just stop thinking about investing. That's the only way to be late. Like, if you get in, you'll find opportunities. So thanks, Rhys, for that talk. Let's jump right into your presentation now.
All right. So I'm Rhys Trenhaile from the Vanguard team in Windsor. We focus heavily on income property sales. About 30% of our sales are residential to friends and family in Windsor, but 70% are basically handling. 95% of our investors don't live in Windsor. So for 20 years, we've been taking care of the out-of-town investor, making sure they get set up properly and are set up for wealth. I've got an announcement to make. We are now up and running on the Windsor Essex Real Estate YouTube page. So we'll be focusing and announcing our exclusives on there in real time, BRRRR strategies and BRRRR opportunities, house hacking, investment properties, and I'll continue to give you guys the local insights there as well. And at the bottom there, if you just want to pause the video, and that's it. We're the Windsor, Ontario Real Estate channel on YouTube. So come join us over there, and it will supplement everything that I do here with these guys. So if you're really interested in Windsor, that will add some fuel to your fire.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's really useful for people to have an opportunity to go somewhere where they can not only see the pictures, but even if it's one way, have almost a discussion with you about the property, because from my understanding, you're going to review properties, give context to the situation, the location, the opportunity. And I think that that's very important information. And in understanding that 90% of us are not in Windsor. We don't know the difference between Street A and Street C and which implications come with that. So I think this is a great opportunity for you guys at home watching. Click on over to Windsor Ontario Real Estate channel, subscribe to it, and then don't forget there's a notification bell. So hit the notification bell, because if they're reviewing properties, that means these are likely live properties or properties that were really recently on the market. If they're live, now you know about a listing that you might actually want to engage with. If they're recent and sold, perfect. Now you know about comparables in the area that you're looking at. So great opportunity there, guys.
Yeah, over 50% of our investment properties don't sell on the MLS. We just sell them
Right.
exclusively within our client base. So if you want to get on those email lists, etc., just send us an email, introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there, guys. Speaking of exclusive listings, this is going to go on the MLS if it doesn't get sold, but for now it's available through the end of October, and it's a house with an ADU already in the basement. And I'm 6'3", I'm 6'4", 6'5" with the shoes on, and I can walk freely down in the basement. And it also has a detached double car garage, which eventually you can add your second ADU. Super deep backyard too, so you could always put one in the backyard as well. But even if you don't do a thing at the price that we assume it's going to sell for, you're looking at about a $500 cash flow a month, and that's assuming 20% down, 80% LTV on the purchase price. So, and it's in a great neighborhood, so you've got that future value add by building the second ADU on top of or in the double car garage if you want, but I tend to put them on top. So that's a really good one, guys, right? And your cash
Awesome.
flow now at like a 6.5, 6.75 interest rate. How much do you think you're cash flowing when rents keep going up $100 a month and your interest rates go down to 4 again? Right? You're already cash flowing now. Have fun later as it gets better and better and better and better. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's the crazy stuff, right? So we're down 16% year over year in number of sales. So you've added, since what, last year, 14,000 people, maybe 12,000, and yet our sales are down 16%. It makes no sense, man. And it's just not sustainable long term. It's kind of like January to March 2022 when we were telling our clients to hold off buying because property values went up 36% in 3 months. And I called it the stupids. There's no way it's lasting. Just wait. Right? Sure enough, market correction through the summer. And it's the same here, guys. Like, this is not normal. This is a powder keg waiting to explode. Like, there's just no way that that's continuing. It's just no way. There's no possible way, right? The average price is up 3% year over year, but bear in mind the Canadian historical average since 1867 is 5%. So that's an underperformance, right? You can kind of see here, yeah, you can see my mouse, right? So here's the stupids. That's January, February, March 2022, I think. And then here's the 2023, right? So you had this crazy jump in value from like December. December was like down here and it just went wham. And then here's your correction. So here you can see it was going up and now it is stalled out. I consider that a flat line, basically, guys, right here. It's flatlined, the property values. Very strange, and it won't last. And again, even if you just go on basic history, 5% a year property appreciation. And right now we're at 3%. That's 2% right there on the average year that you can pocket now if you're buying now before the herd gets interested again, probably around March or April in 2024, right? Right now, there's some additional gains to be had because of the stall out.
Yeah, and I would say there's probably some decent just seasonal demand too to come up. So like if you're looking to buy right now, there's probably more listings loading right now. So great. I mean, looks like a good time to buy, really.
Yeah, so in November and December and January, boy, as an investor, you can end up getting some really good deals in those years. The first deal I ever got, there was an ice storm, and somebody listed a beat up duplex that could add a third unit in the basement, and they listed it dirt cheap, like it was like 87 grand. And me and my real estate agent, who's now retired, he's an awesome human being, Mike Mooney. He got out that classic Lincoln Town Car.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, I mean,
nice.
the Lincoln Town Car, man. He was a beauty. And it was so icy that it was a slope in the road going down that he had to keep his tire against the curb
on the curb
to come down the slope to get to this house. But we were the only idiots crazy enough to go out. And sure enough, I got the place for $81,000, and that was the start of it was my third property, but it was, you know, the beginning of my equity gains. And that's the other thing too, guys. Don't wait for a steal for your first property. If you're buying your first property ever, you don't even know what a steal is yet. So when the steal comes up and I go, look, it's a steal, but you got to move quickly. You can't move quickly as a rookie investor because you've got so many questions and so many fears. And oh my God, this guy's pushing me, right? And so rookies almost never get steals. You have to just buy a good meat and potatoes investment, get used to being a landlord, get all your questions out of the way, get all the fears out of the way. Now you're ready for the steal. And now you have perspective because you know what a good deal is because we sold you one. We might have sold you a second one. You know what a good deal is. And now that steal comes up, you know it's a steal. You have perspective, right? And you don't have questions anymore and you don't have fears anymore. So that's why you don't usually start with a steal. So forget about waiting for it. We only see one, maybe two rookie investors get a steal a year. Yeah. Market activity down 15% for the same reasons we were just talking about. I'm going to flip through this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Residential units, I don't know why. I shouldn't say February, man. It should say September. But you can see here that the bulk of sales are still under 600 grand in Windsor, right? Like 38 sales under 300 grand for Pete's sake. Still, right? You can
that's crazy.
Yeah. I thought by now that the $300,000 mark was going to go to the way of the dodo, but it's still lingering, man. You know, so you can do a lot of damage, like a lot of profit in that was slang damage. You can do really well 400 grand and under. There's a lot of different ways we can make money for you guys in that realm. Adding an additional dwelling unit, for example, or buying that $350,000 duplex. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that you can start with us, and then we can build it up from there.
Yeah, it's always exciting when you see the number of houses sold at your max range is more than the number of houses sold at your min range. So you're up to 299 is the same number as your max. So that actually to me indicates that's a pretty healthy market though too, right? Because you've got some supply that's at sort of your lower end things, smaller stuff.
Right.
Or perhaps in somewhat of disrepair, but actually everything's congregating around the mean, which is actually a good sign for that market too, right? That means there's lots of diversity, healthy neighborhoods, and you've got some great neighborhoods too. So it's not like there's a ceiling to living in Windsor. There's also houses that are going to be in that $1 million+ range. So
Windsor has no slum. Windsor has no slum. There's no north of Barton Street like Hamilton or Jane and Finch or North Winnipeg or East Edmonton. Like we don't have that. The worst you're going to get is a couple city blocks that I don't want my wife walking down at night. At 1 o'clock in the morning. There's a few blocks here and there, but I mean we don't.
But every city has that.
Yeah, we don't have. It's hard to explain the Windsor mentality to other people, but we all take care of ourselves. We're all from small villages back in Europe or Arabia or Africa. We're all village people, right? We're from a tiny Welsh village up in the mountains. There's a different mentality with that. You take care of each other, right? And there's a friendliness to this town that apparently goes back to the fact that we're an old French settlement. So we're the only city in Ontario that's built on French Canadian, small L, liberal, laissez-faire attitudes, whereas the rest of the province is built on small C conservative British English values. So you'll find when you come down here, everybody's very friendly, everybody's really laid back. It's a little more European, right? Like if it's a sunny day, the cafes, anything outdoors is packed, right? And it's like, aren't you guys supposed to be working, right? Yeah, but the cafes will just be jammed. The restaurants will just be jammed. Yeah, it's a great city for that. And you brought up the stigma earlier. That just goes back to prohibition. That's a 100-year-old stigma, and it's only the GTA that has that stigma. It's so funny. Like when I started the business, like I had people calling up from 647-416 and 905 that thought RoboCop and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse were going down Main Street, and I'm just like, well, what are they talking about? And I won't get into it because we're towards the end, but I'll tell you this really quickly. So the investors would come down. I'd get them to come down from Toronto because that was the only way I could convince them that we weren't what they perceived. And I wouldn't even let them into the brokerage. I'd come outside with a big track and field stopwatch around my neck. And I introduce myself, and they're looking at the stopwatch like, what the hell's going on? They're like, okay, we got to stand at the road. All right, tell me when you see a rusted out car without a bumper or something. Go. And it used to take an average of 2 minutes, and the husband or the spouse would say, wow, every car is actually in really nice condition. Okay, let's go inside.
Yeah.
Point made. And they knew I was making a point that RoboCop and the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, we have the highest net disposable incomes in Canada. We have more boats per capita down here. Like, there's a real high quality of life down here because you get all the amenities of a big American city. Like, if I could turn my camera right now, downtown Detroit's right there, like looming through my window, right? The Renaissance Center and all the cranes with all the buildings they're building, because they're going through their own renaissance over there. Detroit is a phoenix rising from the ashes. But they just added another Michelin restaurant, 2-star. Yeah. But my point being is that this area, when you're next to an American city, that's the 10th largest city in America, you simply have access to more amenities than any other Canadians, including Toronto. You're not even close. You're not even close to an American city. So we have this embarrassingly wonderful situation where we get to live in Canada, baby. And we get all those advantages living in Canada. We get all those advantages of living in a smaller city, like low crime, no traffic jams, right? We're also as far south as you can be, so we get 6 more weeks of summer a year than Torontonians, right? To enjoy those boats, because we got more boats per capita. But then you've got all the riches and all the advantages of a big American city with all their amenities right next door. Detroit's got the 2nd largest theater district in North America. It's got the 4th largest art history museum. The ROM is like 15th. Do you know where I'm going here? It's not just the pro sports teams, and I tell you, they are foodies. Oh my God, are they so good at food over? We are too, but we're more like, we perfect ethnic village food, right? So we perfect pizza, we perfect shawarmas. We got one of the top 10 burger joints in North America, according to Rolling Stone magazine. Like, it's all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm waxing poetically about my city, but you'll find, if you know Windsorites that live in Toronto, pay attention. I bet you they continue to talk about when they're going to move back to Windsor. 98% of them, they're trying to find out or figure out how to move back down. Yeah, I was literally telling that to guys from Toronto last week, and a guy sitting at the bar said, I just retired down here last year. I only lived here 4 years of my adult life, but I loved it, and I was counting the days to come back.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you see it all the time. We call it Hotel California. Once you get a taste of Windsor, you can check out anytime you like, but you're coming back.
I love it.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not sugarcoating that. It's a real phenomena. Yeah.
That's wicked, Rhys. Is there anything else you have left for us here today?
No, guys, again, we've got the new channel. It's going to work in conjunction with what we're doing here, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody over there.
Excellent. Well, the link for that channel is, again, just below this video. So if you haven't already, click over there now, hit subscribe, get those notifications on so you guys can stay up to date with some of the listings that these guys have and other additional information. I'm sure you're going to be shooting some really informative videos there. Otherwise, you'll see us back here. We're going to do more market updates, and we'll make sure we keep you up to date with what's going on in Windsor. We're going to have fun discussions. As your host here, Adam J.D. Martin, I like to push our people. I like to get into engaging conversations, not only for you guys, but selfishly for me, because I'm also interested and I'm an investor. So that's the point of this channel. The people that we bring on this channel, they're investors. The people that are hosting on this channel, we're investors.
Yeah.
The reason why we have these conversations is so you can level up the room that you're in. And hopefully someday I can have you on the channel as an expert who's gone through it, right? And done some of the things that you've had to do to gain that experience. And Rhys, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for letting us in on the Windsor secret, and we'll see you back here soon.
Yeah, good to see you, Adam, man. Thank you.
Cheers.
See you guys.
Cheers.